welcome to Live on Purpose. Thank you for joining us once again for a great Saturday show. Today we have some great candidates who are running for offices here in Ohio, and I'm excited to talk to them about some of the resources that they'll be bringing to the table when they are elected. Stay tuned, sit back, relax, and get your glass of wine, and let's get it. Hey, everybody. As I stated, we have some great people here with us today on Live on Purpose. I have Cassandra McDonald running for state representative of District 8 right here in Ohio, as well as Dr. Montgomery, who's running for a position in the Ohio Board of Education. Great positions, and great to have you guys here today because I'm interested in what you all will be bringing to the table when you're elected. Positive energy, you like
Yes,
that?
absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, Cassandra, tell us a little bit about some of the resources that you plan to bring to your areas in Ohio and how you plan to do that.
Okay, well, pretty much being a state legislator, which is what I'm running for, state representative of District 8 in Ohio, I plan to bring a lot of changes when it comes to things such as education, healthcare disparities, poverty, even looking at the judicial systems and trying to do criminal and judicial reform. And one of the ways to change it is actually to implement laws or to amend the laws that we have to pretty much coincide with what's going on to make things better and efficient in that sense.
Okay. And education is huge. So, tell us what you plan to do differently than maybe we've had in the past.
Well, I think one of the major issues that we have here in Cleveland is the school to prison pipeline. Many of our African American boys and Puerto Rican and Latino boys are going to prison prematurely. And if you look at the problem, Cuyahoga County is the largest producer of felons in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
And that alone demonstrates that there is an issue somewhere.
Right.
And the people most accountable for making sure that you have somewhere to go after you graduate high school are our schools. And currently they're educating some for work, some for college, and many of them for unemployment. At a time that we have labor shortages in IT and healthcare, as well as the construction trades.
Right.
We have labor shortages, but we got high unemployment in the African American and Latino community. So one of the things that I'm going to bring to the table when the folks of Cleveland elect me
Absolutely.
is to be sure that I look at those policies. The school to prison pipeline, a lot of people call sort of this name, but it's really a number of policies. It's having police officers in your schools. So instead of getting suspended and going home, you get suspended and go to juvenile detention. It's about getting rid of those zero tolerance policies.
Okay.
There's no real reason you can say there's a rationale for throwing a kindergarten out for a year because they brought something that they shouldn't have to school.
Right.
And too many times the victims of those are kids who look like our kids. And the reality is that, we ain't all one Cleveland until all of Cleveland has the same opportunities to come to the table and have a plate.
Agreed. Agreed. So let me ask you guys this. So we talked about school to prison pipeline. Is this tying into mass incarceration, and how are your positions important in that?
Absolutely. I think it's preconditioned in a sense, like he stated with our educational system, it's
Right.
preconditioned to go that way. And even when it comes to, and I'm speaking totally with my position, when it comes to, like you said, having police in the schools, that's you shouldn't.
Right.
It's bad policy.
Absolutely. Right.
And I think that not only should we look at it from an educational standpoint, but also let's look at what we have on the bench, and let's look at who's on the bench, and let's look at laws that negate reforming the bench. Because after all, a person can go up, whether it's a juvenile, an adult, or whoever, can go up and end up in court. But it's the bottom line is, what is that judge? How are they going to sentence, and what's going to happen with that? Because if they are known for this type of behavior, here's your mass incarceration. And that, again, whether it's, a juvenile or an adult.
Right.
So I think that we should also look at it in an out the box kind of sense. And maybe even besides reforming the educational systems, the mass incarceration part of that will be terming judges.
Right. Right. That's important. I wonder too, when you talk about judges being on the bench too long and maybe terming judges, I wonder too, do we have some of that same mentality when it comes to the Board of Education, where there are folks who maybe have been there too long, maybe they are coming from a perspective of how things used to be and not really addressing the needs of our youth today? Do you see that?
Well, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that we do actually have a state board of education. You know, you're familiar with your local board, but the state board actually provides the guidelines for how our schools run,
Okay.
and they have term limits. So
Oh, okay.
it's not that they stay on there too long; it's that we're not electing educators to this board.
Oh, wow.
They have a 19-member board. 11 of them are elected positions. 8 of them are appointed by the governor. Out of that 19-member board, only 2 people have seen a classroom.
Oh, my.
2.
Okay.
And we have a bunch of people with political science degrees and bachelor's degrees who are making educational policy, which is
Okay.
part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because, for example, they just recently passed this policy where the teacher's evaluation is 50% observation from the principal, 50% test scores. A psychologist, as I've been educator for many years, I can tell you that when you start linking my evaluation to scores that are not accurately measuring our kids, what you're doing is you're putting me in a position to only test to the test, teach to
Absolutely.
the test.
Teach to the test, yes.
And essentially, what we've done is in the higher risk areas where it's like the poorer you are, the more likely you're to do bad on the standardized test. It's not a measure of your intelligence; it's a measure of your poverty level.
Right.
And essentially, if you're a teacher who teaches say in the Huff area, you are teaching a concentration of kids who are coming to school from low income backgrounds, and that test is only testing their poverty level. And as a teacher, you can't change that.
Right.
And what they're doing is after a couple of years, you can lose your job because you have not been able to adequately bring out test scores that are not being tested appropriately in the first place. So it's not as much about us electing people who are there too long. It's essentially us having people who don't know what they're supposed to be doing
Right.
for our educational system.
Right. When we come back, I want to talk to Cassandra and Dr. Montgomery about how we can make this change today with people thinking that my vote won't count or thinking I don't know which way to go because no candidate is the right candidate. We'll be back in just a sec. Welcome back. So just to dig right into it, I know you guys have your different platforms, very different positions that you're running for right now. But I guess what I want to know is what do we tell people who just say, listen, nobody is good enough, or folks that say, well, Democrats is for black people and Republican is for white people and so forth and so on. What are some of the things that, because I know you've heard these things, what are some of the things that you say to those folks?
Well, first of all, that's an impossible and a very untrue statement because by human nature alone, you'll never have a perfect politician, person, human being, whatever. So that will never be, that will
Right.
never come to pass.
Right.
The thing is, when you are selecting an individual, you need to look at, number one, not where they stand on issues now, but kind of go back in their history. And I always say that any politician who is running for office, you really should notice their civic engagement because a lot of times they don't get civically involved only until they want to run for office.
Okay.
So you want to see, have you laid any kind of groundwork to show that you're really into your community, into
Right.
your district, into your city or state, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And then from there, you have to kind of match where you are with your moral values, your personal values, your educational values,
Right.
and see which politician or public figure aligns more with that. And
Okay.
again, you're never going to get one size fits all because what you feel today may be different from a year now in the next election.
Right, right.
So that's one of the ways to negate it. And as far as Democrat and Republican, the stigma there, pretty much I always say, and I'm going to just say it because the presidential election has really affected a lot of what we feel about politics.
Agreed.
And I just always say you have a Trump and a Hillary in each party. So you can't be, as a matter of fact, as to especially this election that I'm going to go straight Democrat or go straight
Right.
Republican because this particular election does not allow that.
Okay. Okay. Any thoughts there?
Well, it is problematic on who we vote for president at this point because I was a Bernie Sanders supporter.
Okay.
And if I got to pick, one or the other, I have to also juxtapose that one between what's most important on this ticket. This presidential election is nice, and I think everybody needs to be out and voting.
Yeah.
But for me, this election is about our kids.
Agreed.
The most important election that we've had in years is right now, and it's one for our kids and has nothing to do with the presidency. Because the next 4 years of policy is going to be the difference between whether or not we end the school to prison pipeline,
Right.
whether or not
Absolutely.
we stop draining resources from public schools to prop up charter schools to compete with them and take away those resources, so that instead of whether it's charter or public, but good schools in general. People don't have to run from the city and go live in suburbs and sacrifice time with their kids
Right.
to work extra jobs
Right.
just to keep a roof over their head and still not get better schools. I live in Euclid. Euclid got the same F that Cleveland Public Schools did. And I have a choice to send my kid to a private school or to some kind of charter school that would do better.
Right.
But I believe in our public schools. And if you're a grandma, grandfather, uncle, or auntie, you got somebody who that matters for.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
If you want to see a different Cleveland, it ain't really about whether your Trump gets elected or Hillary gets elected. It's about who gets elected on the school board.
Absolutely.
Because having someone with our voice that goes and speaks into those policies and changes those things is the one thing that I think matters. No matter whoever we elect as president, the thing that matters most is what comes most important to us, and that's our children and our families.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we were having a conversation not too long ago, and so many people focus on the federal level that they
Yes.
kind of forget or even not have knowledge of what really happens on the state level as well as the city level. So I think that's really important. And I'm really proud of both of you guys because you are supporting and you are the voices that we need elected, that will be elected November 8th.
you.
So thank you guys so much. How can our viewers find out more information about you?
I'm one of those politicians who is accessible at home and by phone.
Okay.
You ain't gonna have to worry about catching me. It's 216-502-6032 is my number. You can call me anytime. My Twitter and my Facebook is @VoteMontgomery.
Okay.
Friend me on Facebook. Join our Facebook group. Tell me what's important to you because I want to know about it.
I love it. Cassandra?
Okay, and you can reach me on Facebook at Cassandra McDonald or elect Cassandra McDonald. I'm also on Twitter at I Am Ohio campaign. And also, like Dr. Montgomery, I'm very accessible, and you can contact me at 216-303-4680. And I do get around, so you'll probably see me in the community.
Yes, you
Right.
definitely will.
Yeah.
I want to thank both of you guys for being on Live on Purpose, and I wish you well, and I hope to be able to support both of you as you move into your new positions because we've already claimed it.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you for
Alright.
having me.
Stick around. I'll be back with some more thoughts in just a second. Live on Purpose. Again, you can't stop a movement. Once it gets started, forward motion all the way. We want to take media to a different level. We want to tell stories that people want to hear. Radio, TV, so much more is coming. Live on Purpose has so much more to offer the community across the world. What's crazy is that I'm not inspired by your average everyday entertainer that you turn on the radio and hear. I'm inspired by people who have words to say that most people don't hear them. They go days and days without hearing. I'm inspired by the grandmother who's been on her street for 52 years and has seen and heard everything and still stands regardless of how many people have gotten killed right in front of her eyes. I am inspired by the everyday person who is great. Your vote counts. It's important that on November 8th, you get out and vote. Whether it's for Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. We just need you to vote and understand the issues. Do your research. You heard it right here on Live on Purpose. It's your girl, Purpose, and I'll see you next Saturday with another great show. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.